Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Compliance Corner with John Hanson. I am here with our wonderful designated broker, Mr. John Hanson. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great today. Thank you, Cole.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so we have a topic today that is a little emotional sometimes. It's talking about how to get the earnest money back to the buyer. And sometimes this can be contentious, sometimes this can be a bit emotional. Can you walk us through that, John?
Love to. Yes. So first of all, sometimes isn't probably true. It's probably all of the time. It's emotional. And if it's not emotional for the agent, it's emotional for the seller, because the seller has been making plans. They've been counting their money, so to speak. They're set on this thing happening, and now the buyer is using one of their contingencies to terminate the contract, and it's really upsetting. And the seller feels they've been damaged financially. They feel like they could have taken one of the other offers, all kinds of things, but none of that stuff is contractual at all. The only thing that is contractual regarding the earnest money you're going to find on the contingency addendum that's being used, whether it's financing or inspections or whatever it is. So there's certain steps that we just clinically have to follow. There's no emotion in this. So the first step we have to take is we have to give notice of the buyer's termination. So the notice of the buyer's termination, that most of the termination notices are given on the 90 somethings. So for example, 90I is the termination of the financing contingency, that the notice that the buyer has been denied financing. And so lawyers have been really clear in our legal meetings that we have to, as real estate agents, we have to always give that notice. Always. It's the first step. So you can get into discussions, you can get into negotiations, and then forget to give notice of termination. And the lawyers say, no, 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 no. Always give notice of termination first. Must be done. And so if it's an inspection, that's right on the 35R, of course, that you would give that notice. But besides the inspections, any other notice is going to be given on Form 90 something, notice to terminate.
Now, John, it's an interesting question here. Sometimes people make a mistake of thinking that all they have to do is send a rescission to the listing agent, and that covers both of them. But there's a difference between termination and rescission. Am I correct on that?
Yes, thank you, Cole. Huge, huge difference. And that's, part of the lawyer's caveat on this thing is that they say do not ever just send over the Form 51 or 50. Make sure that you are sending notice of termination. So a Form 50 or 51 is not that notice of termination. That's part of when I say negotiation, that's part of that negotiation to get that earnest money returned to the buyer.
Okay. So after then we deliver the notice of termination, then the buyer notifies escrow.
Yeah, that's your next step. So I do this on a regular basis when agents call me with these, that really we're not holding the earnest money. There's nothing we can do. So your client might be coming at you like a spider monkey, or something, all upset, but there's nothing you can do. You're not holding the earnest money. I'm not holding the earnest money. So really, the only thing that buyer has control to do is to give notice to escrow that they believe that they deserve their earnest money back.
Great.
If it's a seller, they give notice to escrow that they believe that the buyer has forfeited that earnest money.
Okay, and then the agent has then the next responsibility to send the Form 50 or 51 to escrow.
The agent would then send the Form 50 or 51 to escrow, but also they would send that to the client. I'm sorry, to the other broker. So they send it both to escrow and to the other broker, because the other broker might be able to just send it to their client, get it signed, and then you send that to escrow, and now your buyer gets their earnest money back. But one of the things that typically happens in this emotional process is that each party thinks they've been wronged and that they deserve that earnest money. And the problem with not signing what the problem for a seller in not signing what they're legally obligated to sign, which is what it says, by the way, in our Form 21 or 28. There's a paragraph B, and it's lines 35 and 36 that say that if a party to this transaction is required to sign for the release of the earnest money and doesn't do it, they are in breach of the contract. And so a seller who knows that they entered into a contract with the buyer who had a financing contingency and got denied financing has a letter from the lender stating those three things: that they made their application in time, that they had sufficient funds in the bank to close the deal, and that and the reason for the loan denial, then that buyer should get their earnest money back. So so if the seller refuses to sign, the seller's in breach, and now we got to look at paragraph P, because now escrow is going to send that to the interpleader court, and paragraph P is for legal fees, and it says that the loser in interpleader, and it specifically now states interpleader court for earnest money disputes, the loser has to pay the winner's court legal fees and court costs.
Right.
And so we don't want to just jump on the pity pot with our seller and get all upset and emotional. We want to help them have clarity to understand that they could be risking a lot more than just getting the buyer's earnest money back to them. They could be on the line for their legal fees and for the court costs.
Gotcha. And of course, you've got a big warning here. Don't practice law.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so they're looking, your client is looking for you to control this thing. You don't have the money, you can't control it. You're looking to me to control this thing. I don't have the money, I can't control it. There's a reason why the evolution of this earnest money holding thing has evolved into, from everybody having trust, every brokerage having trust accounts, to now only about less than 5% of brokerages have trust accounts anymore. And it's kind of silly that they would, but some do. And if I'm the listing agent and I'm directing that negotiation at the beginning, I'm going to be putting that into a counteroffer. If we're counteroffering other things, I'm going to put that into a counteroffer to have the earnest money held by an escrow and not by a brokerage. That's like having the fox guard the hen house. It's probably not wise. So we want to protect our buyers. We don't want to practice. We want to do what's within our control to do. We don't want to act like we're lawyers and be practicing law, giving them legal. No, it's not in our hands. We just have to let them know that. You know, escrow's holding the earnest money. I can give you the contact person and their email address, and you can give them notice of your what you feel is your right to the earnest money. And in paragraph, by the way, and on page 2 of the purchase and sale contract, in paragraph B, and there's actually 2 paragraphs there. The second of those paragraphs lays out the process escrow has to go through on this, and it states the 2 RCWs that escrow has to control them and make them do their job. It's very common that escrows don't know. And so sometimes you've got a quote for them, they're RCWs that they're supposed to be following.
Well, this is really great advice for everybody, John. This is one of the most important contractual obligations that we have inside of the contract. And it's one of those that there's a lot of moving parts. So we appreciate it so much that you've gone through this. And of course, always, guys, stay tuned every single day at 10 a.m. We're here to bring you Compliance Corner with John Hanson. John, once again, thank you so much for being with us today, and I hope you have a fantastic day, my friend.
Always my pleasure. Thank you, Cole. You too. Bye.
Bye.